June 30, 1908, deep within the Siberian wilderness, something exploded in the sky. No crater, no impact site, no clear explanation, yet the force was so immense that millions of trees were flattened across hundreds of square miles. More than a century later, scientists still debate exactly what happened. Was it an asteroid, a comet, or something far stranger? In this third investigation, we explore one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of the 20th century. So let's begin. The reason the Tunguska event still fascinates us isn't because we don't know what exploded, but because it reminds us that something capable of changing our world forever can arrive without warning and disappear without leaving a clear answer behind. The Tunguska event occupies a unique place in human history. Unlike many mysteries, it was not hidden, it was not secret, it was not discovered decades later. Something happened. People saw it, people heard it. The land itself carries the mark, the scars. And yet, more than a century later, uncertainty remains. As this reading unfolds, the first theme that emerges is isolation. The cards point toward remoteness, distance, silence, a place far remote from the centers of civilization. And this detail is very important because if had the same event occurred above London, Paris, or New York, history might remember it very differently. Instead, it happened above one of the most remote regions on Earth. The wilderness became both witness and guardian of the mystery at the same time. Another powerful theme appears around perception. The card suggests that people have spent more than a century trying to fit the event into familiar categories: asteroid, comet, explosion, experiment, unknown technology. Every generation attempts to explain the event using the language and ideas available to it. Yet the mystery never completely disappears. One of the strongest symbols in the reading appears through hold cards associated with incomplete knowledge. Not ignorance, not deception, simply incompleteness. Pieces of a puzzle exist, but not every piece. The result is a story where evidence points in a direction without necessarily providing absolute certainty. The reading suggests a phenomenon that was sudden, overwhelming, and transformative. Something entered the sky, something released extraordinary energy, and something altered the landscape forever. Yet, unlike many disasters, there was no clear object left behind for future generations to examine. This absence may be one of the reasons the mystery remains alive, because humans naturally seek physical evidence, because we want something we can hold, we can measure, analyze, classify. The Tunguska event offers far less certainty than that, and where certainty ends, imagination often begins. The cards also reveal an interesting tension between science and mystery. Contrary to popular belief, these forces are not always enemies. Mystery inspires investigation, investigation produces knowledge, knowledge uncovers new mysteries, and the cycle continues. The reading suggests that Tunguska sits precisely at that intersection, a place where curiosity continuously renews itself. Another recurring theme involves scale. The event was enormous. The affected area stretched across vast distance. Yet at the same time, the object responsible may have been surprisingly fragile. And this contrast appears through all the cards, something capable of extraordinary destruction, yet something that may not have survived the encounter itself. Perhaps this is why so many alternative theories emerged. People often expect great effects to require great causes, and when the explanation appears too simple, the imagination begins searching elsewhere. The reading itself does not strongly support elaborate conspiracies. Instead, it repeatedly points toward a real event that became surrounded by increasingly elaborate interpretations. Not because people intend to believe it to deceive, but because mysteries naturally attract stories. And as the reading approaches its conclusion, another message becomes visible. The true significance of Tunguska may not be historical, it might be psychological. The event reminds us how vulnerable civilization truly is. The remote explosion in 1908 became a warning, not because humanity understood it completely, but because humanity realized such events are possible. The card suggests that this awareness is part of the legacy, We live beneath a sky that is not empty. We inhabit a planet moving through a dynamic cosmic environment, and most days we forget that fact. Tunguska forces us to remember it. So the final cards feel surprisingly hopeful, not fearful, just hopeful. They suggest that mysteries are not failures of knowledge, they are invitations to continue learning. The Tunguska event remains fascinating because it sits on the border between certainty and uncertainty. We know enough to understand that something extraordinary occurred, yet not enough to remove every question. And perhaps that balance is exactly why the story continued to captivate people more than a century later. Because some mysteries survive not by hiding the truth, but by revealing just enough of it to keep us searching more and more. That's it for this reading. Thank you for watching, subscribe to the channel, and see you soon in the next investigation videos.